LFC Daytrippers, brought to you by bookmakers.com.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. I'm Gav, and with me tonight I have got our friend Glenn. We are going to be talking about Thiago Alcantara. I'm going to let Glenn have a say on McAllister and Domo, aka Soboslai, and we're also going to be talking about the centre half situation at Liverpool, because that's become, for me, it's going up the ranks, I suppose, in conversation as the days and weeks have gone on. Glenn, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, no, doing well, thanks.
Yeah, good. Let me get your take on the two signings so far. Alexis McAllister at £35 million and Dominic Szoboszlai at £60 million. So £95 million outlay in pounds or by Liverpool Football Club so far. Two midfielders. We've been crying out for midfielders. Me and Matt done a show on Friday. I got Keith and Shawnee's take on it last night. But whoever I have on this week, I want to get their takes on the signings, because I just feel there's no negativity around these at all. So, both of them in. What do you feel on both of them?
Yeah, it's a good start to the window. I mean, Liverpool Twitter's a funny space, like when it's in the off season and in January, because if we haven't got someone signed by the first day of the window, everyone seems lose their heads. So yeah, but no, good start, and obviously the areas that we needed addressing are clearly being taken care of, which is also good to see. Like McAllister, I mean, for the money that we've got him, I mean, it's a really good piece of business. Obviously we were linked with him long before, and I don't think anyone really knew that this release clause was there. So for us to get him for the price that we did was a great bit of business. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing him. I think he brings a bit of a different dimension in terms of what we've had previously. Very tidy on the ball, which obviously is like Thiago, but he does have a bit of a bite to him as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him. And then Szoboszlai, from the sort of the videos that I've seen of him, he sort of reminds me a bit of Oxlade-Chamberlain, in that he's very direct, and all the goals apart from the penalties he scores seems to be from outside the box. So, he doesn't seem to score many tap-ins. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing him. So yeah, it's been two good signings to start with. Probably still a couple more needed. But yeah, it's a positive start.
Yeah, I think the fact that both of them have come in, Liverpool, they could both look comfortable in a 4-3-3 at Liverpool. They'll definitely look comfortable when we start 4-3-3, and if Trent comes in and plays this kind of box with Fabinho, whoever else is there, these two look actually tailor-made a little bit for those 2-way positions where they literally spearhead this attack for the three lads up front, because where they play their game, you could actually put them in. McAllister, for me, came to my attention in the World Cup, and it wasn't because he was an attacking 8 or a 10, because he simply wasn't. His work rate was phenomenal, but you see more of him than since the World Cup, where you're going, Jesus, he plays in a 10, he can play here, he can play there. And Szoboszlai, when you look up his stats, probably fits a 10 mould, but we're more or less playing 2 10s really when we go in with that kind of box midfield thing. But both, I think, will be comfortable in any formation you kind of Liverpool will put out there, because it's either going to be 4-3-3, that box, or out of stretch 4-2-3-1. And I think you could possibly drop McAllister back into it too, and Szoboszlai could go and play ahead of those 3 lads behind the striker. So I think that's a huge thing for me when it comes to it, and that's why I think there's so much positivity about it. I want people to be experts in their field, in positions, this summer, because I hate the word project. And I feel, if someone comes in and they're like, oh, he's really good off the left or the right, or he can kind of play 10, it just screams project at me. And I'm not into that this summer. I want someone to go in and go, if he's playing in that position, he better be fucking good at it. And these are good at it. It's just a bonus that he can, if needed, go elsewhere. But all of that, with those coming in and possibly more, has led to the stuff around Thiago, which we are going to get to in a bit, because I think it's going to split opinion on what we should do with Thiago. But let's talk centre halves, because I think most people, when the season ended, it was like, look, we need 3 midfielders. They just haven't looked after midfield enough. And the centre half thing just was bubbling under the surface. Maybe a centre half. Maybe we can get a centre half. And it was just thrown in there every so often. But now it seems to come to the fore, where it's like people have released themselves from this obsession with midfield, which is, the obsession is correct, but they've released themselves from the obsession of midfield to go, right, what are we doing at centre half? First of all, where do you stand with the 4 centre halves we have at the moment?
It's a difficult one, because it's like, I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but there's a couple of players there where if they play to the potential that they've shown in the past, you would say we don't need anyone else. I mean, like, the one who stands out when I say that is Joe Gomez. I think he's just perfect for us in terms of he can play centre half, but also he can do a job at right back. And obviously, we spoke so much about this new role that Trent's been playing towards the back end of the season, and obviously that's led to conversations around him potentially playing in the midfield. But the one thing people have said is, well, if he goes in the midfield, he plays right back, and if Gomez was in form, we would put him there. But just seems to be his confidence just seems to have been completely shot last season. I mean, that Real Madrid game, he was absolutely abysmal. He really was, So yeah, Gomez is one. He's got so much ability, but he just can't seem to get a run of games and any consistency behind him to sort of stay in the team. Matip didn't have his best season last year. And I think as a result of that, you really now sort of see like Kanate and Van Dijk are the 2 established centre halves. I don't see that changing next season, regardless of a potential signing. So yeah, it's a difficult one, because you would normally say if you have 4 sort of senior centre halves, that should be enough, you would think, to sort of see you through a season. With the odd injury here and there. I know obviously a few years ago we had a bit of a crisis there, but that's a bit of a one-off. So I'd say that the 4 that we've got, say that there's clearly 2 established first choice centre halves, and then you've got 2 backups who can come in and do a job for you. But it's, as I say, it's the reliability of like Matip when he's not playing regularly. Sometimes he looks a bit shaky, and it's the same with Gomez. You feel like they're 2 players where they only really show their best once they're getting a good run of games. And barring an injury, you don't see how that's going to happen. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it with them 4.
It's interesting, because I could make arguments for moving on Matip or Gomez, all right, and I could make arguments for keeping them. It's not a hard argument to make, really. Sort of way. Gomez, I think, hasn't looked the same to me.
Yeah.
I think I might have been at the game with you at Southampton at home last season. So the game,
yeah.
And he got bullied.
Shea Adams.
He got bullied by Shea Adams. And me and you sat watching this together, saying, like, on the ground he's bullied, in the air he was bullied. He didn't look, no. He looks like, forget yards of pace and stuff like that, making decisions seems to have stopped with Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez used to make decisions where I'm going to run with him and I'm going to make sure it happens. And he takes that extra second to make a decision. He's not assertive enough. And I think that's what's killing him. I think if you told Joe Gomez, listen, it takes you an extra second to run that 50 metres, he'd be fine with that. But he go make the decision and run it. Whereas with him now, I think it's just like, oh, will I do it, will I not? And then bang, he's in trouble. The sort of way. And maybe he's lost that yard of pace, and that's what kills him then. Because Joe Gomez used to be able to, if he wasn't sure, his pace would get him out of trouble. and now it doesn't
Yeah.
look like his pace can get him out of trouble. And I don't like him at right back. Now, the mad thing is, if you were to put Trent in and start him in there, Joe Gomez is probably fine at right back because you just want your right back to stand there and go, listen,
Yeah.
you just stand there and just stand beside Kanate and Van Dijk, and that's your three, and we'll allow the left back to go a little bit, which would suit Robertson, believe it or not, more than this system does now. With Matip, I think he's a year left on his deal as well, and as soon as it gets down to that, people are like, oh, well, they'll sell him. Not really, because they never moved on Milner in his last year, they never moved on Ox, and they never moved on Naby Keita in the last year. They didn't move on Divock Origi in his last year. There's loads there. They've let them run out of the contract. Yeah, Firmino. Yeah, all these people that they could have got rid of, and they didn't. I'm going to throw this at you though. I think if we're making a centre half signing this summer, it has to be left sided. Okay, simply to suit what we're trying to do. If you weren't going to go down that Gomez right back route. And I think it should be someone that we look to in a year to 18 months to basically become the heir to Virgil van Dijk, who's 32 years of age now, I think. Am I being too optimistic in that? Because a lot of people I've seen going, just sign this guy. He cost you 25 million. Yeah, but unless we find a star at 25 million that just in the next year to 18 months is amazing. Are we wasting an opportunity here to forward plan in the centre-back slot by just getting the left-sided centre-back?
I think the thing is, I mean, I couldn't name someone off the top of my head right now who I could say they could come in and potentially do that role that you're describing. I think the thing with Virgil is, he's 32 now. So I mean, with his game, you still say he's still got another at least 2-3 years still at the top level. Obviously, barring injuries, of course. But yeah, I think like the thing with the centre half one is as I say, there is now starting to be a bit more talk around us strengthening that area. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. One of the things that we criticised the club for was we kind of almost sleepwalked into this kind of midfield disaster because the only midfielder we signed in the last few years was Thiago, and obviously, he was already past 30, and his legs weren't exactly the reason that we bought him. So it's not a bad thing for the club to be thinking about this because, as I say, we do have 4 senior centre halves at the minute. So it's potentially not something that it's a number one necessity, but as I say, to avoid a repeat of what's happened last season with the midfield, it's definitely a good thing to be proactive on it. But yeah, I think the thing for me is it's just I don't know if there's anyone who really sort of like stands out as an obvious candidate to sort of fulfill that role.
Well, Ronan Murphy put in a comment here earlier, and don't worry if the super chats there that I haven't used, the reason is because they're on a topic that I'll get onto later, so I will do them. But Ronan Murphy says, reports are that Caldwell from Chelsea prefers a move to us. Not sure how true they are. Now, he's going to cost you in the region of 40 to 50 million quid. We know Brighton have had I think somewhere between 35 and 40 million pound be torn down. But that's 50 million quid, can play on the left hand side, does play on the left hand side, I think, of a centre half pairing. Young, has experience in the Premier League. But Shawnee said something to us last night going, a better move for him is probably going to Brighton and then looking to move to whether that's back to a Chelsea, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, FC, whoever it might be. Where would you stand on him at 50 million quid? Because if he's willing to come and he knows he's going to fight for a spot and may play some, but he's heir to Virgil van Dijk. He is looking at a year to 2 years of his career where he's not going to be first choice. Where do you stand him as a player, though?
I think he's a really good player. I mean, obviously, you could go through that entire Brighton team from last year, and you could probably say all of them would be candidates to move on to bigger and better things. But no, he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what you look for in a centre half. He's big, strong, quick. He's good on the ball. These are the kind of attributes that to play sort of certainly at the top end of the Premier League you just have to have, and he definitely does have them. I think it's just a question of, would that be a realistic proposition in terms of us being able to prize him away from Chelsea? Obviously, we know that they've spent a lot of money, but they are starting to get rid of players, and obviously Saudi Arabia is just kind of eating up their dead wood, like Koulibaly and Ziyech just gone there. And there'll probably be a couple more that would follow suit. Obviously, Mason Mount's on his way out the door, so um, I think maybe like a few weeks ago, maybe before the Mason Mount thing kind of became sort of um, before he made his move to United, Chelsea might have been in more of a position to maybe consider the need to sell him because of obviously the FFP regulations. So as I say, I think he definitely does. He fits the bill. I would agree with you in terms of for his career, he probably, I think the best move for him would be to go to Brighton and really establish himself there and for another season. And I'm sure if he did, Brighton would probably, put in a decent release clause. So yeah, as I say, he's definitely a good prospect. So, but just as I say, whether or not we would realistically be able to get him out of Chelsea, that's the only question mark for me.
Yeah. Sene says here, Caldwell said he doesn't want to be a backup and wants to talk to Pochettino first before making a decision on his future. But I don't know where he stands at Chelsea, because it'll all depend on what Pochettino wants, because they still have some, well, you can argue good centre halves, but expensive ones in Buddy Shield is still there, Fofana is still there. They have a couple more as well, so it's not like he'd feel he'd walk into that Chelsea side. I think I kind of agree. If Brighton can get the deal done, it's probably, I'd love to have him at Liverpool, but for his career, if he backs himself, he goes to Brighton for a season or two, and then he ends up wherever he wants to, really, the sort of way.
Yeah.
He'd end up becoming a centre half that everybody wants. But I think it's a difficult one. I think if you're going to decide that Van Dijk and Konate are your number one pair, and I think that's a fair thing to do, because I've banged on all summer about it. If we get midfield right, I think it helps the current midfielders that are there, to have been kind of ran into the ground a little bit, and whether you rate them or don't, they've been played too much football, all of them, really, and played, like poor Cody Gakpo. Like, if you think of him as an example, he came into this side and it was all over the place, and people were like, what is up with this Cody Gakpo fella? Is he any good? He's brilliant. But once you start getting players back, you see that they can't be one-man teams, and even the likes of Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago that we talked to in a bit, midfielders coming in here helps, but I think it's going to help defensively as well. I think it's going to get us back to a level of work rate and intensity that gives the back four a break. Do you know what I mean? So I think you will see a step up in Van Dijk and Konate. Then you're left with Matip, Gomez, and they both seem predominantly right-sided. So the argument is possibly there that if there's a year left on Matip, or you're not too sure on Gomez, one goes out, you bring a left-sided one in, but he knows he's in the mould of whoever's left behind Konate, that sort of way. And I don't know what players out there either. I really don't. Like, Hincapié is being mentioned. This guy Van der Ven's being mentioned. But the only thing I've seen of Van der Ven is he ran on a YouTube video really fast. I don't know anything else about him. Apparently he can't head a ball, but he can run fucking incredibly fast. So we'll have to wait and see. If there's any names in there, Paul Giovanni says Shane Vardy is off the City, but that looks like €100 million deal. And in other summers, if you needed a centre half, you'd be going for him. But when you need these midfielders as well, it's just not one you can do. But if anybody has any names that you'd like to see come in at Liverpool, shout it out, and I will read them out as they come in, or I'll gather them up when we get to the end of the next topic. Thiago Alcantara. All right. This is the name that's popped up literally from this morning. It come up saying, I think he removed Liverpool from his bio on Instagram or something like that, and then a lot of stuff going around, and look, you can put two and two together and probably get four when you think there's midfielders coming in here. We're linked with two more in at the moment, Lavia and Kefram Toram. So it's like, will one go? Which one will go? And his name seems to be popping up all the time. First of all, regardless of who comes in this summer, if there's two more, one more, whatever, are you for or against the sale of Thiago Alcantara? I'm gonna make you tell me now before we move on.
Oh, 100%. I would not sell him. I think he's head and shoulders our best midfielder. Honestly, I find this for people wanting to sell him. I can understand sort of like there's obvious reasons as to why he would be a good player to sell. Obviously, wrong side of 30, 1 year left on his contract. There's potential, obviously, a lot of money going or coming into the Premier League from Saudi Arabia. He kind of fits the bill of the type of player who is going there, and I think people are maybe just kind of like maybe you said they're putting two and two together, but in my mind they're definitely not getting four. Um, Even if he plays 25 games next season, I don't think you'll do well to get a performance out of any of the other midfielders that'll top what he can. I just think he's a different level. I think the other thing is next year is obviously we know we're in Europa League, so realistically, he's probably not going to play in that competition very much. I wouldn't expect, or I certainly wouldn't be playing him because if we're going to manage his game time, I'd rather have him available for Premier League than playing in the Europa League. So obviously when you're in Champions League, you can't really rotate as much. You need to have sort of your strongest 11 out, playing more regularly. But the Europa League this year, I would be saying to the likes of Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones, used to you'll be starting for us in the Europa League, and this is your opportunity to go out and really show us what you can do. Now I know obviously Curtis Jones had a good end of the season. Again, he probably splits opinion. I'm still not convinced, but yeah, as I say, in terms of Thiago, not a chance. I wouldn't be selling him unless there was a silly offer came in, for maybe like 30, 40 million. I definitely would not be selling him.
No. So Musa LFC, Musa LFC 21 was super chat earlier on, and this is why I bring it up now. He said reports are saying that Gerrard wants to bring Henderson to Saudi Arabia, and that news just came out. I don't know how true this news is because you're going to get all this stuff going on now. Somebody else said there that Thiago is meant to be in advanced talks to go to Saudi Arabia, right? So the reason I've asked you that at the start is because there was a couple of comments at the very start of the show, with regards to, Thiago going or not. So let me read a few to you. So Rory Fitzgerald said, there was always a possibility for a mutual agreement between the player and club for Thiago to leave. He's 32 and could probably get a 3-year contract with a new club and country experience. LFC get token fee and release those wages. Brian O'Halloran feels that Thiago's experience is vital and is perfect as backup now. Plus his skill set isn't easy to replicate. Only Trent or possibly McAllister could run a game like him. I hope he stays. And Andrew Cahill then says, makes a lot of sense to offload Thiago now. 2 great signings so far that will be available the majority of the season. Thiago will know his place in the team. Now won't be happy on the bench, right? So just on Thiago so Thiago, I looked it up because Gary on Twitter, who listens every night, he said, look, he basically tweeted us and said, loving the content the last couple of weeks over the transfer stuff, but I really hope when you talk about Thiago, you bring up his availability. And he was putting it forward that he's available for 70% of the games. It's just slightly below that, right, to be perfectly honest with you. But Thiago averages 35 games a season for Liverpool at the moment, right? 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. Okay, 3 seasons. Okay, we've played 168 games, I think, in something in that period. He has played about 105 games. I think he's been available for 105 of those. So he's averaging about 35 games a season. Okay, now you have to take into the fact that 21 games that he missed out of those 66 was COVID and Richarlison folding him in half. So he's missed, if you take those two, he's missed about 40 games in 3 seasons for Liverpool, which people would say, he's missed 40 fucking games, the sort of way. But my whole point on this is that you have to weigh this up. It's probably 10 million in wages over the next year, right? But my whole argument around bringing these midfielders in is that You don't look to Jordan Henderson to play 50 games next season. You don't look to Fabinho for 50 games. And you certainly don't look to Thiago for 50 games. So if you tell me next season that we have Thiago available for 35 of those games, okay? Or he plays 35 times, but it's not Ox or it's not fucking Milner trying to run around the place. It's McAllister and it's Szoboszlai. I'm absolutely fine with that. I am on the side that he might want to go, and I think Rory's point is great. He goes to Liverpool and says, look, I'm getting a 3-year deal here, so anything we can do, you're bringing in loads of midfielders, it releases you to do this. My argument is that you can't really replicate what he does, and not putting so much pressure on him to be around every single game because we have other quality there. I think it's the way to go, and I still think it's the way to go if we brought in 2 more. Like, I'm absolutely fine with going in with 10 midfielders. Fine with it. No problem. Knowing that Thiago leaves next summer, possibly Henderson, possibly Fabinho, and you might need to do another 2 next summer and you get back to the number of 9. Am I mad to think this, Glenn, or am I just up in the fucking sky in my own cloud? Because that's not how football works. I just think for the 10 million quid and he's going to be available for 30 games, that's his average 30 to 35 games, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, 100%. As I say, I think the other thing as well, like we need to remember is in terms of like the availability thing, that's not a Thiago problem. That's a Liverpool problem as much as anything, because the amount of injuries we've had and issues with availability for any number of players we've had over the last few years. I mean, on one of the videos I've done sort of towards the end of last season, I said the same thing. Keita, Ox, Curtis Jones, he was practically missing for the entire first half of the season, and the year before that as well, he missed a big chunk. So there's a lot of players in our team who do miss a lot of games. So as I say, it's not just a Thiago problem; it's a Liverpool problem as well. And a lot of the issues in terms of availability, it's not obviously like the Richarlison one. Like that's just that's a bad tackle. You can't do anything about that. But like he missed sort of the last sort of 15, 20 games. I think it was a hip issue. Now, to me, like you put your hip out if you're not being worked in the right way or you're being overworked potentially. So again, like to me, there's a lot of questions in terms of what's going on in that medical department of ours. So yeah, as I say, when we throw the availability thing at him, I think we have to remember that there's 2 sides to this as well. But yeah, no, as I say, I think if we do get 30 games out of Thiago next year, that it'll still be worth it. Because he's such a high level player, and we've never really seemed to have a player who's been at that level. Who you would class as like a world class midfielder, like a truly world class midfielder. When you think of the teams and the level he's played at before, so yeah, me personally, I understand, as I say, why there are arguments out there to potentially moving him on because of the contract situation and the money that's going about, but I still think we'll be better having him as opposed to moving him on.
Kev O'Sullivan asks, Kev of this parish asks, where does he play in this box midfield? And he also says it frees up a non-homegrown spot to bring in a 200k per week player. First of all, Kev, I get where you're coming from because I think the box midfield thing where Trent moves in there, I think is brilliant. And I think the midfielders we've signed actually helps us be better at that. Like I was only talking last week about like Szoboszlai in an attacking sense versus Henderson is a no-brainer. If you want to run around all day and try, Henderson's there, but I think Henderson just has so many miles in his legs that he's becoming a little bit more difficult to fit into this side, right? But and he, like it's night and day the sort of creativity you're going to put in there with Szoboszlai. But the reason we went to this box midfield is because one, we're getting overrun in midfield, and the whole idea of it is that we get in there and we take control and we actually put teams on the back foot. And you see it, as soon as Trent goes in there, teams just go, whoa, and we're fucking dropping right back here, and it's actually protecting our defence by doing that. I think the players that we brought in allows us to probably go back near a 4-3-3 okay, where we can run and we can outrun teams and outmuscle them and press them. I think that's where we've gone to. Thiago was absolutely fine in a 4-3-3. I've never looked up Thiago in a 4-3 and goes, he's getting overrun. Right? He actually works so fucking hard. On the non-homegrown spot point, I completely get it because you're looking towards Kefren Turan. But we're not going to get rid of Thiago and spend 200k a week on a player. We're just not. Kefren Turan and Lavia isn't going to go near 200 grand a week. My argument is that you keep him, all right, and you bring the other two in. I don't know what the issues are with regards to registering them and stuff like that. But I just can't unless somebody comes in, maybe Saudi Arabia, and I shudder every time I think of a player being linked with Saudi Arabia. I'm being honest with you, because there's a much bigger picture to this than just getting a few quid off a team in Saudi Arabia. Unless someone comes in and says, listen, there's 35, 40 million quid to take Thiago because he's a massive name, right? And you kind of go, fair enough. Like Rory said earlier, he gets a 3-year deal and he's happy to go. Fine. But I think all things being equal, I think Thiago should stay, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, like you said, if he's not being worked right or managed, I think Kevin Ball says there, we haven't managed him properly since he arrived. In fairness, when he arrived, COVID got him, and then Richarlison got him, and we were kind of, running uphill after that with Thiago a little bit. I just can't see. I can see the merits in, we can move this around, move that around, but the player you have, what you think you're going to get out of him game-wise, and what you put in place beside him now, as opposed to what you had last season. It actually, this season makes way more sense to have Thiago than it did last season or the season before when you think about it. But I could be wrong. Let me see, there was a couple... Paul Giovanni threw in Hanko from Feyenoord as a centre-half that he liked. I'd have to go and look him up. I haven't a fucking clue who he is, Paul, being honest with you. Hanko sounds a bit like a made-up name. It sounds a bit like Damo. You've just made it up. But Paul, let me know about him, what's he like and stuff like that. But listen, I don't know what people think on Thiago. The rumour is going around about him. You're going to get loads around Saudi Arabia now with Gerrard gone there. And I think Robbie Fowler might be going over there as well, actually.
Yeah, he has.
I don't know what teams they've joined. Are they linked to the 4 teams? Are they one of the 4 teams that the owners in Newcastle own? Because it's...
I think Gerrard's club is. I think that's one of the 4 that sort of the PIF have kind of taken over. I think Fowler's team, they might be like the division below. I'm not 100% certain, but yeah, I think the team Gerrard's gone to, because I mean, a couple of weeks ago he turned them down, and then obviously there's been something's changed, and I don't know whether they've just threw money at him and he just thought, you know what, this is just too good to turn down. But yeah, I was definitely surprised to see that he went there, because I was saying to a friend, I thought like maybe like I could see Lampard going there. Lampard's had a couple per managerial stints. You think of the Chelsea, both Chelsea stints, and then obviously the Everton one. So Lampard hasn't done a good job anywhere in a long time. Whereas obviously Gerrard, he had that bad spell at Villa, but you would think maybe the work he's done at Rangers, there'd still be some credit left in the tank for him. So I'm surprised that he's gone, but look, money clearly talks, and I think the thing is now is that it's becoming sort of like almost accepted, the whole Saudi Arabia thing. It's almost like people are just saying, well, this is just how it is now.
Well, I think like the Saudi Arabia thing, to be fair, right now, Anticos has seen something saying Saudi league owner has said they've only bought about 10% of the players that they actually want, right? And Jason Campion says Robbie Fowler's is in the 2nd division. Gerrard's team is not linked to PIF. I couldn't tell you the 4 teams there are. I just know there's 4. But someone else says there as well, Antico says, Gav, get money on Gerrard to Newcastle. The whole thing with Saudi Arabia, if Saudi Arabia turn around like tomorrow and says, right, we're setting up this league and we've all this wealth and we want to bring players in and we want to promote it, I've no issue with that. It's the same like MLS done. 25 years ago. Do you know what I mean? MLS was there for so many years, then they went, right, we need to get serious with this. We set it up where you can bring 4 overseas players in, you have a cap, blah, blah, blah. And this is the way they went, right? Gary D says Fowler's team is in Division 2, so he only has 1 billion to spend. But I've no issue with that, right? My whole issue around this, and you're saying like it's become acceptable. I think what you mean by that is that this crowd owns 4 clubs. They own Newcastle, right? They're heavily invested into Chelsea, who are selling their players to Saudi Arabia to clear the madness that they went through over the last 12 months and 600 million spent. So basically, by working together, they're basically funding 2 Premier League sides here, when you think about it. They're funding one, and they're protecting their investment in another. And that's not acceptable. But I think you're right. It does become acceptable because big numbers, big money, everyone just goes, who gives a fuck about what's going on? Look at this fella going over here for 30, 40, 50 million. Look what they're paying him. Isn't it mad? And that's when it's going to go. It'll just keep going, but that's what masks the actual issue. Do you know the sort of way?
Yeah. Well,
it's like insider trading, really. You know, that sort of way, and it's not acceptable in any way. But I have to restrain myself massively when I'm talking about this because I end up going off on a mad one and maybe here till fucking 11:30 tonight. Do you know what I mean, Glenn? Go on, sorry, go on. You were going to say something there.
No, I mean, I'm not, me personally, I'm not saying it is acceptable. You know, I just think that's just the conversation now has, because it's, as I say, it's just becoming the norm. I think the conversation now has kind of just changed, and it's just kind of like, well, like I say, this is just kind of the way it is now. And I think, you know, it's not obviously it's not just football that they're, that they're investing in. It's so many sports, and it's kind of almost like when they get their fingers in so many pies. You know, obviously at the minute, like with Wimbledon being on, you know, there's now talk around, you know, tennis being the next one, and you know, a lot of the players are just saying, well, you know, this is just we just kind of think that's just part of it now. It's just going to happen. It's a case of when, not if, and you know, as I say, and I think that is just part of the reason why it's just, you know, well, sure, that's just how it's going to be now. Which obviously, in my opinion, it's not great. And in turn, you know, bringing it back to the sort of the football side of things, like you're right. Obviously, the MLS done it with you know, obviously Beckham was the first to go out there, and then you had the likes of Ibrahimovic go out, and then obviously there was the thing with China, which you know was a bit mad for, you know, 3-4 years. So you know, the thing with Saudi Arabia is it could be another one of them. It could be in 5 years' time we're looking at this, and you know, it could have all just completely blown up. Not literally, but you know, it could have all just, you know, died away again, because obviously look what happened in China. So. So yeah, but as I say, like, it has definitely changed the dynamic in terms of players like Thiago, because obviously at the age he's at now, there's no question. You know, we both think he can still do a job for us at this level, but for him, he's probably thinking one more payday. You know, if I can get a 3-4 year deal, and then not that they need these you know, big paydays, but you know, that just seems to be the thing. You know, when they get to that age, it's like, well, if I can get a 3-4 year contract out there on silly money, then I may as well take it. And then, you know, that's me. So yeah, obviously there hasn't been, other than sort of today where it was the whole sort of Instagram thing, although I've been told apparently that it was never there. I don't actually know because I don't check these things, but yeah, that's the reason this seems to have come about today, the whole question of Thiago. But yeah, as I say, I definitely hope that he's not leaving.
Laszlo says PIF own about 1% of Clearlake, which owns a lot of other things. Chelsea are directly competing with Newcastle. They aren't helping Chelsea. Trust me, they're helping Chelsea. Well, PIF own 1% of Clearlake, who own Chelsea. And PIF are heading up these clubs in Saudi that are buying all these players off Chelsea in order to get around FFP and just allow them to spend what they like and go, listen, don't worry about it. If it doesn't work, we'll just take them all back off. Like, honestly, lads, I don't know whether you're like, and he says they're more likely to sell the Clearlake stock. Maybe. But as things stand, right, an investor in Clearlake owns Newcastle. Clearlake own Chelsea. And at the same time, they're buying players off Chelsea to clear Chelsea's problem with FFP. Like, there's like, where else do you want me to go with this? Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't just get my head around like trying to make sense of that without it being, like you said, like Glenn said, becoming just accepted when it's completely unacceptable. Robin Maguire asks, Gav, can you see a team in the Saudi League and the Champions League down the road? I would write nothing off. Nothing off when it comes to UEFA. Absolutely nothing off. Because when the Super League came around, UEFA were pushed into this position where they had to offer more money to their stakeholders, i.e. the clubs that are in it. And they just come up with the Super League. They've literally just come up with the Super League and just banged the UEFA badge on it. I honestly, I would rule nothing out. I would rule, I wouldn't even rule out a 39 game in the Middle East. I wouldn't rule out, the Champions League. Like, you're seeing it already, a 32 club World Club Cup. Do you know what I mean? That's going to take place, I think, in America, in 2025, I think. So you're seeing this already. You know what I mean? The World Club Cup used to be South America. There was 4 main things, and they went in and blah blah blah. Right, there was so many teams, but 32. Like, where are we putting these players in? Where are they playing? Do you know what I mean? And if they play it in, what are they going to do? Play in the summer? Do you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like, what happens? Do these players finish the league season, go out and play this, get that out of the way, and then into a World Cup or a Euros or a Copa America? Do you play it in the winter? So players, Liverpool fuck off. Liverpool win a European Cup and fuck off for a month to play in this game. 32 games. So you know what I mean? You've you know what I mean? You have that. You'd have a quarter final, a semi, so possibly 4 games over, what we saying, 16, 17 days. So 2.5 weeks. You have to go there and you have to come back. So that's 3 weeks. In the summer, it's madness. In the winter, it's like 3 weeks in November is like fucking 6 Premier League games, 7 Premier League games. So, but I write nothing off. Football is on its arse. There's no doubt about it. It's absolutely on its arse because of, one, the extortionate amount of football that footballers have to pay, right? The cheating that's gone on in football, right? And we're still seeing all these charges hanging over you know who, right? And then the continued bullshit going on with clubs, owners, countries, this, that, and that. It's absolutely on its arse, right? And listen, it mightn't last long enough. And what I mean by that is it'll keep going, but people, I think, will end up just going, this is a load of shit. But we're in a generation now where they don't follow teams. People follow players. You know what I mean? I see kids on the road here who, and there's kids on the road here playing football, and it's great to see, by the way, right? But one fella will be out in an Mbappe jersey today, and they'll have a Salah one on tomorrow, and they'll have a bleeding this one on a Haaland one on the next day. They follow players, and the generation we live in now follow players and just want to see all the money spent. How big can it get? And it is the FIFA generation. That's what it is. And FIFA, UEFA, all these are quite happy with that. Me and you will be the ones left behind. Maybe we're just getting old. I don't know. But look, Wizard says football clubs need to get back to being clubs and not companies because they don't help the communities that they're in. Yeah, a lot of clubs do help the communities that they're in. Do they do it enough? Maybe not. Maybe they could do more, but in fairness, a lot of clubs do a lot in communities. In fairness, Wizard, I will say that much. Let me see. FIFA League, says Eunice. Yeah. Before we go though, Glenn, I've asked this of the lads over the last couple of shows. What do you expect from the rest of the window, sitting here now on the 3rd of July? What do you expect to see from Liverpool and the rest of the transfer window? And I don't want what you want. I want you to take it all together and go, I expect us to do that.
I think, well, we know obviously Klopp says this every year, but I think sort of this year more than ever, he said he wanted all of his signings in sort of before pre-season starts, which is obviously, I think it's next week. So I would certainly be expecting at least one more midfielder. Obviously, of the two who are being linked the most is Lavia and Thuram. I think if it was me, I would say probably Lavia because I think we do need another 6. We can't just rely on Fabinho to do that role. So I would definitely be expecting another midfielder, and then who knows what might happen in terms of a centre half. As I say, I think the only sort of reason that I would maybe doubt that is just because at the minute We're not really seeing any names being floated about in terms of who could potentially come in that position. But like as we both said before, it would not be the worst idea to get someone in this summer because of we know kind of what could be ahead sort of in the following years. So certainly, yeah, I would definitely be expecting another midfielder. I don't think it'll be too far away either, which is again is a good thing because we want to have all these players in as early as possible so that when it comes to the opening game of the season, there's no excuses. So yeah, that's what I'm expecting.
Okay. If there's loads and loads of people watching tonight, if you are watching and you haven't hit the like button, do it now or do it on your way out. Like, subscribe, comment, turn on the notifications icon as well. So as soon as we go live, you will know about it. Let me see. There's a couple of people shouted in here. Eunice wants one more mid and a centre back. Antwango wants 2 more in. David wants 3 more in and 3 out. Okay, he's gone big. Laszlo wants a centre half. Adwango says 3 would be gravy, but 2 for me, and I'm happy. So yeah, that's all right. Ronan Murphy says it's all over social media now. The Hendos wanted by Stevie G. A lot of sources reporting it could be nonsense. Ronan, what sources? Like genuinely, what sources? That's the only question I'm going to ask you. Brian, and that's not a go with you, by the way. It's just everyone seems to think they're a fucking source on Twitter nowadays. Let me see. Nigel wants Trent in centre midfield and captain. Wow. Okay. Archie says, what's your thoughts on Gravenberch? Get back to that in a second. And David says, investment announced after the transfer window. I've seen some of this around investment, and it's like, it's some investment crowd, but I think it might be a wealth fund of a country, and that's where I go. That's where I'm not for at all. So I'm going to be absolutely very upset, possibly, by the end of this window. But I did think if Liverpool were to get investment, they weren't going to bang on about it in June, July. I thought they might do their summer and then announce some sort of investment, a minority investor with the chances of taking over maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how it works. I don't work for fucking one of any of these big companies, so you know what I mean. They're not doing it on the back of a smoke box. But yeah, I've read stuff about that, and we'll have to wait and see what comes. We'll have to wait and see what comes out of that. Gravenberch, I don't know. What's your thoughts on Gravenberch before we go?
I thought when he played for Ajax against us in the Champions League sort of a couple of years ago, I thought he looked a real player. So I'm surprised, that what's happened with him at Bayern. I mean, I don't watch the German football enough to be able or follow it well or closely enough, sorry, to be able to comment on sort of what's going on there. I think we did speak about him sort of when it was coming towards the end of last season, and he was definitely someone who was linked a lot more heavily back then than what he has been this summer. So yeah, I mean, he's clearly a good player. Like, he wouldn't be at Bayern Munich at his age if he wasn't. But it's I don't know what's went on there last season, so it's a strange one. Obviously, Tuchel's in there now, so for all we know, things could change for him. But as I say, in the games that I've seen him play against us for Ajax, I thought he looked like a real good player, and he sort of had the kind of attributes that we were lacking last season in terms of that sort of pace and power to get about the pitch. So when we were first linked with him, I thought that could be a good signing, because it was kind of low risk and it didn't look like it would cost a lot of money either. But for whatever reason, it obviously seems to have cooled sort of since the season finished and the transfer window opened.
I think he looked great at Ajax. I really did. Yeah. He goes to Bayern for a relatively small fee, and I thought that's a great signing. And it just hasn't worked for him. Maybe moved too young, I'm not too sure. But there's a lot in the chat here having no time for him. Fair play to this. Kevin Ball says Gravenberch seems to talk too much. Programmer says he's lazy and mouthy. Passio reckons it smells of a wronging to him. Talented, but nah. Let me see. That's probably it on it. And James LFC is there saying 400 million investment apparently. And Tarek says Liverpool looking to sell 10 to 15% for 500 million. So we'll have to see what comes of that. But it's crazy season at the minute. So you know what I mean. You could just say what you want, and people will go, "Oh yeah, really, yeah, absolute gospel." And some fella on, it'll be sitting there with his lovely faded haircut on Sky Sports, telling you that he knows everything that's going on, when in truth he knows fuck all. That he is definitely sausage of the week, by the way. I forgot to mention that during the week.
Should have wear your turtleneck tonight.
Yeah, I might dress up. I might dress up like I'm for Halloween, and everyone will know who I am. But look, Laszlo said, yeah, Gravenberch 17 million in around that, yeah. And Tarek says he agrees on Gravenberch. Not a good egg, it seems. Too much talking. I think people are a bit like that now because they're like, oh no, we're getting these two lads so we can kind of have a go at Gravenberch a little bit, because he was one that everyone was banging on about. Everyone was banging on about.
I didn't know this a few months ago. Like,
yeah. He was sound about 6 weeks ago. Now he's the worst fella in the world. But anyway, Trevor Vella says 366 watching, 112 likes. Come on, people. Yeah, you have a bit more than that now at the minute. But hit the like button on the way out. It helps us. It helps us keep all this content for free, and helps us keep going. Someone did say earlier, if Liverpool were controlled by the Saudis, would the LFC Daytrippers go kaput? Because I'm not against it. No, that's not what I said. What my take on this is, if Liverpool become controlled by any country on this planet, it wouldn't stop me doing what I'm doing. But I would be voicing my opinion majorly on it. And I just turn on one of them moaning fuckers that just turns up and goes, yeah, we won 3-0, but what about this? And it probably suits me to the age I'm getting to, so it's one of those. Gaza's seeing 33% for 1.4 billion. See, it's all out there now. What we call it, Glenn, we just go with, let's say 37% of the company for 1.63 billion. Will we go with that, Glenn?
Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to use me and Glenn as a source, lash it out, clip us up there, throw it out on the internet, see how it runs. That's about it. Rest of the week, tomorrow, me, Phil Casey and Keith Plunker are going to discuss the life and times of Luis Suarez, which should be belting. Wednesday we should be back with a transfer show, chatting around whatever's going on, if there's anything going on. The lads are back on Thursday with some Liverpool great games to discuss. And listen, Friday could be another night for cans because we've signed someone else. If not, we won't be around on Friday. How does that sound? And we've done our best for you this week. That has been the LFC Daytrippers. No transfer knowledge with me, Gav, and the brilliant guest, Glenn, who has exclusively told us Liverpool are selling 36% of the club for £1.63 billion. So there you go. Blame her on him. Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.